Hi everybody, it's Michaela Byer and I'm here with Mr. Paul Mars Black. A lot of you will know him as one of the original singers of LA Guns, but he has a much longer career and we are going to go over all of that today. Thank you for coming.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Alrighty, cool. So let's start at the very beginning. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in San Francisco in 1959 on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. And I was raised, I lived right around the San Francisco area for a little while in San Anselmo and Petaluma, Santa Rosa. I lived for a while. And then when I was about 5 years old, we moved to a place called El Dorado Hills, which is kind of like gold rush country. All around Coloma, Placerville, the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains in Northern California.
Sounds beautiful.
That's where I grew up.
Cool. So what kind of a kid were you? Did you kind of instantly love music, or was there a point at which you realized that you liked
I always loved music as long as I can remember. It was just kind of ingrained in me. But as far as what kind of kid I was, I kind of looked at myself as a kind of a Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer kind of character. I mean, I lived in the country. So I was able to just go out in my backyard, just be up in the hills and hiking around. I could hike to lakes and rivers all over the place. And me and my dog just hike all over the place. And I was adventurous, really outgoing. I was pretty bold, I think. I would just go up to kids' doors and knock and ask if they come out and play and get football games together, or go hike to the lake and go fishing, or swimming hole or whatever. I loved outdoors and I loved animals. So I would always be bringing home, my mom wasn't very fond of it. I would always be bringing home snakes and rabbits, rats, mice, whatever I could find. I would catch animals and I'd take care of them for a while and then let them go.
Oh my gosh, you sound like a really cool kid.
Any stray dog that I saw wandering around, I'd bring it home.
Awesome. You're kind of reminding me of Steven Tyler and his childhood. Have you read his book?
Oh, I haven't read his book, but I know Steven.
Really?
Yeah.
My goodness. I don't know that. That's
Great guy.
He's
Of all the rock stars, he's probably the nicest, and I really look up to him. He's a good guy.
Awesome. And that kind of brings me to part of the next question. Like, when you realized that you wanted to pursue music, who were some of your influences that were formative? Like, did you like the Beatles when you were younger?
I'd have to say, of all influences, the main person that influenced me to even get involved with music was Ringo Starr. With the Beatles, of course. I remember seeing the Beatles as a little kid on the Ed Sullivan Show, and I just thought, that's cool, and that's what I wanted to do. And I really loved Ringo, and just watching him pound away on the drums, and I thought, yeah, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And my dad brought home a bunch of 45 single records when I was a little kid, just a whole bunch of them. So I learned how to work the record player, and I would listen for different things, what sounded good. And if I liked something, I would just keep playing it over and over. And I found this one song by the Beatles. He had a couple records that were the Beatles, and I don't remember if they were on the flip side or anything, but there was Saw Her Standing There and If I Fell, and I just played those two songs over and over again. Constantly, once I learned how to work a record player.
Yeah, so there was a Paul and a John song in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned your parents. What were their professions? Were they involved in music at all?
They were teachers. In fact, my whole family were teachers. They were my grandparents were teachers, and my mom and dad were both teachers, and all my brothers and sisters became teachers too.
Oh.
And I was a teacher for a little while too. But
Oh.
It's not really what I went into, but they went into teaching as a career. I just kind of did different things. And I taught at a rock and roll school for a little while, but later on in life.
Okay, awesome. Were they encouraging of you? I mean, I know eventually when you went to school, you majored in percussion and voice.
They were encouraging for music for sure, because they were it was a musical family that I was in. But they didn't. I really wanted to be a drummer because of Ringo.
Yeah.
And they just thought it was a big expense to go get a drum set, and they didn't think I was serious about it. They thought I'd give it up right away. So they started me out on piano, but and I had piano lessons, but it was really boring for me because the teacher was really intent on making sure I had the right technique, curving my fingers just right, and placing everything right.
Yeah.
And it bored me. I just wanted to get on and just play, and bang away. And so that tedious process of learning piano was not good for me. And then I wanted to play drums, but they didn't think I was serious about it. My older brother was a really good trumpet player. He had a hand-me-down trumpet, because he got a new one. So they gave me his old trumpet and said, "Well, try this first," and so I signed up for high school band and I tried learning the trumpet. And two reasons: they thought that it saved the expense of buying a drum set.
Yeah.
And also they had a trumpet, and I had buck teeth when I was a kid. Oh. So they thought if I played trumpet, it would push my teeth back in and save them money on braces.
That's funny.
Didn't work, but I didn't like the buzzing sensation, like going up in my cheeks and stuff. I had asthma, so it was really hard for me to get enough breath to control the trumpet. So it just wasn't my thing. So I gave it up. And then later, like when I was about 12 or 13, probably when I was about 11 or 12, I think I ended up picking up a pair of drumsticks. And I started teaching myself rudiments, just playing on whatever I could get, like a little pad or a coffee table or whatever. And I learned I started teaching myself the rudiments and stuff. And then when my dad saw that I was serious about practicing, really getting the sticking technique, he ended up getting me a snare drum. So I started playing on snare drum, and that was really exciting to have a snare drum. And then I think about 13, I ended up with a paper route. I didn't get the good one. The Sacramento Bee was like every day, so it was a pretty lucrative one. But I got this one that was called the Mountain Democrat. Okay. And it was once a week I'd deliver that. And I think it was like $7 a week. I was one day on Wednesdays, I think I delivered it, and I would get $7. So at the end of I don't know, I think somehow at the end of a month I would get like a little over $30, a little $30 paycheck, and I held on to it. And I saved up about $100, and I kept my eye on the classifieds, the Sacramento Bee classified records, and I found a drum set for $100, and I went and bought that drum set, and that's what I played forever. I learned. That's how I started teaching myself and learning how to play kit. Awesome. And later on, when my parents saw that I was actually serious about drums, they definitely supported me, and they helped me with getting some lessons, some instruction, and eventually helped me go to college to be a percussion major as well.
Cool. Now, going back to high school for a minute, did you eventually play drums in the school band, and then you kind of had other bands on the side?
Oh yeah, I was on the snare drum line, and I was doing marching drums, and that was really good for applying to the drum set, like learning all the rudiments and sticking techniques, paradiddles, flams, whatever it is, it's like at the time they had what Ludwig put out this thing called the 13 essential rudiments, and then they added different sticking techniques, and then they added to that another 13 and called it the 26 essential rudiments. But nowadays I think there's a lot more. Okay. They've expanded. They keep expanding the rudiments. But rudimentary drumming is I think it's really essential in learning drum kit. Later on I got into drum corps, which was really good for developing my hands, but it was a real stiff style of playing the rudiments. And you had to be you'd be in a line of. It was good for me because I really developed sticking technique, because you're in a line of really good drummers, like the snare drummers, and you have to have your hand up the right height. They cared about how it looked. So if somebody raised their stick like this, you had to be like that all down the line of like 8 drummers, right? Yeah. And some of them were maybe a little bit better than you, so you're trying to keep up. And they do these drills where you just sit there with your left hand going like this, And it developed me. And I developed the muscles in my hands to really become a good drummer. But I didn't like that stiff style of playing. So when I applied it to the drum kit, I like jazz. So I would loosen it up. And, because Buddy Rich was one of my favorite drummers growing up too. So I really like that loose style of playing. So I kind of I think the rudimentary drumming was good for technique, but you had to lose it for a good feel for rock and roll, because you had to have a little swing to it,
Yeah. Now, when you were, I guess when you were about 10, Led Zeppelin came onto the scene. Were they an influence on you? Did you like John Bonham?
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't help being influenced by Led Zeppelin, because it was like every guitar player that I jammed with in the 70s when I was in high school, they all were influenced by Jimmy Page and wanted to play Led Zeppelin songs. So we were always jamming on Led Zeppelin. I didn't really try to emulate John Bonham because I was into like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. So I was looking at Ringo Starr and Charlie Watts and wanting to be that kind of drummer, or Buddy Rich and trying to be a jazz drummer.
Yeah.
And John Bonham, I remember one time I did a drum solo at the high school auditorium, and everybody's all impressed and everything. I did this drum solo, and I had timpanis involved and everything. But so I remember somebody said, "Hey." I was standing around with some people and said, "Hey, did you hear Paul's drum solo? Did you like it and stuff?" And some guy goes, "Well, he's pretty good. He's no John Bonham, but he's pretty good." You know? And I go, "John Bonham?" You know? So I was like resenting being compared to John Bonham. But I think at the time I wasn't paying much. I thought he was a good drummer. I wasn't paying much attention to his drumming as being like one of my favorites. But then later on in life, I looked at it and I go, you know what it was? I think it was like I've seen all kinds of people trying to. There's a certain kind of technique that he does.
Yeah.
The triplet kind of feel with the toms and the bass drum, and it's real loose the way John Bonham does it. But everybody that I've seen that copies him does it really stiff, and it's like you know, and it's and I don't like I was kind of not liking the way people were emulating John Bonham. But then later on, you know, I started paying more close attention to John Bonham. The way he does it has a lot of swing to it, and it flows, and it's actually, you know, I'm really impressed with his drum. I really like John Bonham as a drummer now. It took me a while to kind of appreciate what he is and what he does.
I know what you mean. It's one song that I think really kind of is emblematic of his style is "Fool in the Rain."
Yeah,
like that's a good example. But like as far as Ringo though, like what were some Beatles songs that you think are top notch as far as his talent?
I think Ringo's probably one of the best drummers ever, and people don't think that too much about him because they think of him as a real simple drummer. Mm-hmm. He wasn't real flashy or like all over the place with the drumming, but he played right what was really meant for the music, and really really added to all the Beatles music and stuff. And there was a certain style that is like was very unique, and I think I learned later on it was because of his left. He was a lefty. Right, but he played a right-handed kid, so when he was going around the drums, he would lead with his left hand, you know, because that's his real hand. So everything took on a little different flavor than hearing a right-handed drummer.
Yeah.
And I think that added to his unusual technique and stuff. When he did a fill, it was just nice and tasteful, and worked with the music. And I just really liked it. He was like right in the pocket. Just something about the way he played, the way he kind of. His approach to the drums was very musical and fit with the entire group, and that's what I really liked about Ringo.
Awesome. What about Charlie Watts? What about his style? Do you like, or are there any standout Rolling Stones songs that you really remember liking his drumming on?
Well, I mean, there's some signature stuff like. You know, I mean, every once in a while you hear something that is definitely like, you know, Charlie Watts did that, or like, you know, Honky Tonk Woman. You know, It's very simple, but it's like on the cowbell, and it's like ding, da, ding, da, ding, da. That's Charlie Watts, you know, and it's like, you know, I mean, yeah, all the drummers back then tried to get that emulate that, you know, Honky Tonk Woman thing. You know, that was Charlie Watts, and then that 2-beat thing was like a da, 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 da. That was you know, that was like. Considered the Ringo Starr beat at the time.
Okay. I love the guitar on that song too.
Yeah. But both of them, you know, like in the days of Chuck Berry and when rock and roll was first starting, you know, Chuck Berry and, you know, even with Elvis, Chuck Berry and Little Richard, all that stuff, you know, like if you hear I mean, you don't really hear the drums too much, but if you really listen, you can hear that it's there's a swing to it, and that's because rock and roll wasn't a thing. You know, it's like so any drummers that we were getting, they were taken from the jazz era.
Yeah.
You know, right out of the '40s. You know, and so these were jazz drummers playing rock and roll, what they called rock and roll. You know, and like in Bill Haley in the Comets, it all had the swing to it. You know, later on, Chuck Berry kind of straightened it out a little bit, but him and the piano player Johnny Johnson. You know, it was real kind of like a dun, 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 but in the background was a drummer playing swing.
Yeah.
You know, and I think Ringo Starr and Charlie Watts still had that, and even John Bonham still had that swing. And later on, in you know, kind of just after that, drummers really started stiffing it up, and like a lot of them started becoming like machines, like wanting to be precise and right on the money, and they took away the swing and like made it real stiff. And it's for me, I just think that rock and roll has to still have that swing. So,
Okay.
I play drums on a lot of my tracks because I want that, and it's hard to find these days.
I guess I don't need to ask your opinion on the drum machines. They're on so many pop songs now.
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable. Any kind of, I mean, with music and the development of music, any kind of technology that comes out musical, it's inevitable that somebody's going to come along and experiment with it and use it. You know, it's legitimate. You know, it's like it is what it is. My son Sasha listens to a lot of hip hop, you know, and rap and everything else, and you know, music that really isn't entirely played by instruments. I mean, literally, the music. A lot of the music he listens to is literally can be, you know, you can sit in front of a computer and just compose it all and
it's
record
electronic.
it all. Yeah, it's electronic. And he says there's a talent, and you know, in his opinion, there's a talent in that as well. And he's right. There is. It's a different thing, you know. So I don't discount it as not being music. Just my particular taste. I like the kind of music that sounds like it's actually being played by human beings. You know, it's like actually like you can. When you listen to it, you can envision there's a band up there on stage playing it. You know.
Yeah, well said. When did you begin to write songs?
Real early. I don't even know. I was a little kid, probably just like, probably before I could even like play it much, you know. And I remember writing a bunch of lyrics and stuff in the songs and coming up with this melody and stuff. And I learned a couple chords on guitar when I was a little kid, and I'd play and I'd sing. This song that went on and on and on, and my brother, Art, my oldest brother, got a real kick out of it, and he just kept asking me to play it over and over and over again. So I thought, oh, maybe I know how to write songs, you know. And then I wrote this real, you know, real early on when I was real young. I mean, I probably wasn't even a teenager yet. I wrote this piece on piano that I still play to this day. Never recorded it. I mean, I probably recorded versions of it, but never even wrote lyrics to it. It's just a melody. It's a piano progression and melody and stuff. And the melody is really catchy. And I just remember I played it for people over the years, and they said that should be a hit. And okay, well, I don't know how it's gonna be. I keep trying to think how am I gonna write lyrics to this, and lyrics have never come. I'm a lyricist more than anything. I mean, I write lyrics constantly, and I always have melodies. I think in terms of melody, rhythm, and lyrics, and I approach songs from every different way you can imagine. There's no right or wrong way for me, and but for some reason, for this particular song, I've never. I don't know. I don't think it needs lyrics. I've never wanted. I've tried to think, well, what would I write? And it's a good song, like piano piece in itself. So I leave it alone.
Okay.
I've never recorded it. I just play it once in a while for people. You know.
Okay. I'd love to hear it.
I don't even have a name for it.
Well, if you ever release it, I'd love to hear it.
Okay.
That sounds great. And like one thing that interested me was the fact that you eventually ended up going to college. I mean, a lot of stories that I've read of musicians who are associated with the Sunset Strip and then later on with grunge didn't even finish high school. I mean, what was what motivated you to go to college when I'm sure you knew that a lot of people who were in music didn't wind up continuing school?
Well, you know, I was real passionate about music, and I wanted all the tools I could have, you know, and I couldn't see myself though just sitting in a classroom teaching music or anything. I just didn't have that kind of patience. I was pretty impatient. I mean, to sit in a classroom and listen to a lecture was very difficult for me. I just needed to be out in the world and experiencing things. So I did go to college. Right out of high school, a couple years in college. One at City College and then one at San Jose State. 'Cause San Jose State at the time I went at the end of the '70s was the best percussion school for percussion anywhere on the West Coast. You know,
Okay.
and it was cheap too for at that time. You know, state colleges, even though this had a great reputation for being a good percussion school, it was only, I think it was only like $100 a semester or something like that to go at that time, you know. And for really good education. It was like the teachers there were for drumming they had a real famous drum and corps style player. They had a guy named Anthony Cerrone, who taught me marimba and all the classical percussion, and then there was like jazz drumming, and then there was a gamelan drumming, like Indian style.
Yeah.
Everything you could, any kind of, I don't know why they had so much there, but in the way of percussion, everything was there that I would want to be an all-around percussionist, hand drumming, everything. So that's why I went there. I was attracted to it, and so I went there. But again, I'm from the country. I was a country boy, and so this is my first time living in a city, and it was culture shock for me. So as much as I liked the school itself, all around San Jose State, and the campus, San Jose State campus, was really good. But I think somewhere around in the 60s or 70s, Reagan, when everybody was going off to the Vietnam War, all the fraternities, the fraternities were kind of abandoned and stuff. Mm-hmm. So Reagan kind of passed this thing or something, making them into halfway houses, right? So it changed the city around on the outskirts of the campus. So if you were right on campus, it was really nice and pretty and beautiful. But the minute you stepped off campus, there was a lot of crime and things that would happen. And I remember a friend of mine got kidnapped at gunpoint and taken away and held it, and molested, everything else, a guy, and they let him go, and he was just, I found, he called me, and I found him, he was all shaking and everything. It was a bad experience, right? Yeah. And then also I kind of, it was a last minute decision to go there, so I needed a place to stay, so I stayed at a fraternity. And I didn't mix with a fraternity at all. There was all the hazing and everything that I had to go through to stay at the fraternity. And so, and I was very rebellious. It's like, I'm not the type of person that would take crap from anybody. So I got blackballed. Okay. And then, so the second semester I was there, I got a house, and I got a bunch of friends to help, live with me in this house. But it was right by the campus, still in a bad area, right? Yeah. And, our house got broken into, burglarized. I had like all kinds of derelicts, coming in all the time. So the whole aspect of college was kind of overshadowed by how bad the city was, San Jose. Okay. And as much as I liked the city, the college, I fell into a really bad depression. But I met and I always wanted to live in New York. I told myself I never want to live in Los Angeles, but I do want to go to New York. So I met these musicians that, a really good guitar player named Mark Lewis, who a mutual friend introduced us, and we jammed for a while. And then he had a band down here in Hollywood. He was going to GIT, and then I had a gig. He had a gig opening up for Carmen Iapsi at Santa Barbara College, right? And they needed a drummer, and I had a gig that I was doing up in San Jose, and I wanted a band, So we hooked up, and we got together and rehearsed. They drove up to my house, and we rehearsed at my house, and we did a gig in my backyard. And then we drove down to Santa Barbara College and did a show opening up for Carmen Iapsi. Yeah. And we hit it off, we were good friends and stuff, and they were all from the East Coast. They're all, except for Mark. But the rest of them were from New York. So I thought, well, this is my ticket to New York. They asked me to join the band. So when my second semester ended at San Jose State, I just packed up all my stuff and moved to Hollywood, Okay. And I told myself I'm never going to live in Hollywood, but they found us a house. The whole band lived in it. We called the band Mad Captions. Right. And I moved down here. It was May of 1980. That's when I first drove into Hollywood and just lived here. And I lived with the band and put a bunch of songs together. And it was kind of like a punk influenced art rock band, because even though it was punk, it wasn't really punk stripped down. It was like they're real musicians, so they wanted to show off what they could do. So we did things in like 7/8 time, and so it was very self-indulgent. There was a kind of a punk new wave influence, but it was really kind of like progressive as well, Yeah. So it appealed to the band. Really kind of appealed to other musicians that were impressed with what we could do. Mm-hmm. But you know, it was very self-indulgent and didn't really catch on. And then, but it was really, but we got pretty popular, and we were going to move to New York when they finished school. But by the time they were graduating from GIT, the band had broken up. So I was going to move back maybe to Sacramento, kind of near El Dorado Hills, where I'm from, just go maybe finish up and get my degree at Sac State. But then I got asked to be, you know, a punk band called the Chiefs asked me to join them, and then a band called the Mau Mau's, and a bunch of different punk bands. So I got really involved in the punk scene here, and just joined one band after another, and then I got rooted here. All my friends were here in LA, so I just stayed.
Okay. I mean, over time, did you learn to like living in the city a bit more? I mean, after...
Yeah, I learned to appreciate Hollywood as I got to know it and had friends here. Just all the clubs, and there was so much to do, and you know, it was just I was kind of like I said, San Jose was a bad experience. I was naive, young, and it was like my first experience with the city, and it was like a bunch of derelicts and stuff. But in Hollywood, it was different because I felt like I really fit in because of a lot of artsy people, you know, a lot going on. I mean, there's, you know, obviously a lot of crime here as well too, but I was able to connect with a scene that I really believed in, because punk rock, for me, I mean, I'd watch things just get more and more, you know, as technology grew with music, things, everybody's trying to do the next thing, you know, everybody's always looking for the next thing in music, because, you know, with like Jimi Hendrix, it was like guitar effects and all this kind of stuff, like, and everything that came along, and then it was like, you know, okay, Jethro Tull trying to do all these weird times, you know, and just trying to be different. And I think what punk was for me was going back to the basics. It was, you know, for a lot of people, there's like some sort of political thing behind it. Except for me, from a musical standpoint, it was just stripped down rock and roll. It was like, let's get back to the basics where it should be. And it was great because like all the technique that I'd learned in college, you know, with the rudimentary drumming and everything else, and I could throw away all the technique and just beat the hell out of the drums, you know, and really just feel the music, you know. And it was just kind of that caveman kind of, what would you call it, you know, the thing that you know made rock and roll popular to begin with, that kind of
your primal energy.
Yeah, primal. That's the word I was looking for. Primal. Yeah. And so it was good. It was like to get back to the basics, you know. And then I've kind of felt over time things progressing again, you know, trying to get more and more technical. I mean, even with all the technology, the new technology that's being introduced with computers and all the effects and everything you can do, and the drum beats and everything being precise and everything like that, I feel like for me, it may not happen, may or may not happen, but for me, it's now another time to throw all that away and strip it down to real music again, just real basic, without all the effects and everything, just, you know, guitars and drums and piano, all the basics again.
I sure hope we can get something like that in the mainstream again, just whether it's with rock or with something else. Like, I would love, I mean, again, there's a lot of electro music that I like too, but I'd love something simpler like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. So as far as lyricists go, were there any particular people you admired at that time, or that you've come to admire since?
Well, of course, I love a lot of the Rolling Stones lyrics. You know, I think some of them are just brilliant. And what's cool about the Rolling Stones is, you know, you listen to them when you're young, they mean something, and then as you get older, you go, oh, wait a minute, I didn't notice that before, and it takes on a whole new meaning for you. You know, and I just remember being in a real bad state of mind one time, and I didn't really like Tattoo You when it first came out. And it grew on me, and then there was one day when I was in a really, really down, depressed state, and I listened to Tattoo You, start to finish, the entire record, and it took on a whole new meaning to me. And to this day, I listen to that record in a whole new way. It's one of my favorite records now. So I think, you know, I think good music that's stands the test of time, and it'll evolve. It takes on new meanings over time too, you know. It sticks with you. So yeah, Rolling Stones, Beatles, of course, they were very innovative with their stuff. Bob Dylan, of course, is one of the best, you know. And I guess if you want to go for today, I actually just went to a Pink concert the other day, and
cool.
I wasn't really sure if it was my cup of tea or not. I wasn't sure, and it was just like it was a really good show in all aspects. It was like she's a really good performer, great voice, and the music was really good. And a lot of the lyrics stood out. Seeing her live, because I didn't listen to her stuff ahead of time that much, but a lot of lyrics were standing out to me in her live show. And then I went home and started listening to, looking up YouTube videos on Pink and listening to some of the songs that stood out to me. And I thought, wow, this is really good stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I love Pink. I think she's a great writer.
Yeah, I didn't know until I saw her live. So sometimes there's probably stuff out there that I've gone unnoticed because I've been so saturated with music that maybe I'm opinionated. I think I need to break out of my shell of like the 60s, 70s stuff and maybe explore some new things. Some of the newer artists I like I love the Alabama Shakes.
Okay.
They're kind of old school too.
I haven't heard them, so I'll have to take your word for it. But.
Alabama Shakes and Amy Winehouse. I loved her.
I was really sad when she passed as well. Like I adored her album, which I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of the record right now, but the one that had Rehab and
Black and Black. Or
Back to Black.
Back to Black.
Yeah.
I don't know what she writes or if she's a lyricist. I was trying to think of she does a lot of covers, but she does a lot of lyrics too, and the lyrics are really good. But she's an amazing singer too, and musically everything about her is.
Yeah, there was no voice like hers either. I just loved her as a vocalist, and again, great loss. But one band that you might like is Haim. Have you heard Haim?
No.
The drummer of that band, I think she actually majored in Bulgarian drumming.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Cool. And I was actually going to say too, I've had that experience with songs as well, where songs that I heard when I was younger, I didn't understand them at the time, but later on they took on much more meaning. I mean, a big one for me was The Pretender by Jackson Browne. Just my parents played that a lot when I was younger, and I didn't really get it. I thought it sounded sad. I kind of discounted it a bit, but I listened to it again when I was about 17. And all of a sudden, I just started sobbing. It was beautiful, and I actually found out that my mother had written her college thesis on that song.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we had the same opinion when we had the discussion about it, so yes, I relate to that. And anyway, but as far as vocalists at the time, like, was there anybody when you arrived in Los Angeles, was there anyone on the punk scene that you admired vocally? I mean, I know that maybe we don't associate punk with vocal prowess much, but were there any singers that you saw and particularly admired?
Well, I don't think he was considered a great singer or anything, but I really liked Rick Wilder, who was my lead singer in the Mau Maus, and he's really just very cool, kind of Mick Jagger kind of character. He never, unfortunately, he never made it the way he should have at the time. But and got circumstances happen, and sometimes it doesn't quite line up for somebody. But he's somebody that was really good. There's a band called the Comatones who I produced.
Okay.
It had a great singer named Giovanni. I forget his last name, but he's passed away now. But and I still got the recordings on my like one of my hard drives and stuff, because I really wanted to have them to get a record out, because they were a really good band, good songwriters, good lyrics. He was a great singer, and the whole band was good. Jimmy James was a guitar player, great guitars. Everything about them was really cool, and wish they would have done a record. There is a record that exists. I'd have to kind of get around to other band members and see if I could get permission to finish it up and put it out somehow.
And now Robby Krieger produced that, right?
No, I produced that one. But Robby Krieger produced one of mine from the Mau Maus.
Okay.
Yeah, in 1983. That was a place called in Venice. Recorded in 1983. I remember I had a really nice Gretsch drum kit and then I had my old 5 skit that didn't have, like, I'd lost the pegs for the bass drum and stuff.
Yeah.
I went through, right before we did that recording at Mad Dog Studios in Venice, California with Robby Krieger, my girlfriend had taken off and took my drums with her, my good drum kit. So I had to gather up my old drum kit, and it didn't have, I didn't have my drum stool, and I didn't have pegs for the drumstick. So I went set up, and I had to find these, like, cinder block bricks to prop my drum up so it wouldn't, like, topple over with you know, because the tom's over here. I didn't want it toppling over that way. Yeah. So I had to, it sucked because I had old heads on it and everything, and I was worried about the sound. And I said, well, you know, at the time the engineers were saying, well, we have these things called drum triggers. Drum trigger? It's a new technology, right? At that time.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm just worried that I didn't get a chance to change the heads, and they're not going to be, you know, they're not going to sound great. And they said, don't worry about it. We'll beef up the sound in the mix, right?
Yeah.
So I set up my drums with cinder blocks and stuff, and I didn't have a drum stool either. So I got a milk crate, turned it on its side, and then I wasn't high enough, so I got these Yellow Pages phone books, and I stacked those on. So I was on a milk crate, sitting up on 2 phone books, and and I had cinder blocks propping up my bass drum, and I played like that. And then I wasn't quite happy with the way the drums sounded, or I was worried about the way the drums sounded. I didn't say I wasn't happy because I didn't hear the mix, but they said, don't worry, we'll fix it up in the mix. So they did these drum triggers, but at the time, drum triggers were like a really new technology. And it would only, the drum trigger would only kick in if it had a strong enough signal from the bass drum. So it was like, it would take when I was hitting it really hard, it would trigger it off, but then it would be it wouldn't trigger when I hit it lighter. Okay. So it was like, boom, boom, boom. These random drum hits were coming in out of nowhere, and it was off time, it felt off time, because they were so random. And so it made me sound like a horrible drummer. And I said, I don't ever want anybody to hear that, right? So I didn't push to get that out or anything. I just thought it was a horrible recording. And Rick Wilder, he did like scratch vocals, but it was him, you know. It was like you didn't really need to go in and redo them. But so we did the session, and I guess it was okay because. But the next day we went to finish it up and do overdubs and stuff, and our guitar player was like, we didn't know where he was at. He was like hungover or something, or just didn't bother showing up the next day, or he was worried about doing leads and stuff. So Robby Krieger said, well, you know, I can play the leads if you want. And we go, really? And I go, do you have an amp? And he goes, yeah, I got my amp right on my car. And I'm picturing Robby Krieger has this big Marshall stack in his car. And I go, you really? You can carry around your Marshall with you? He goes, no, I'll go out and get my guitar. And he comes in with this little pig nose amp about that big, right?
Yeah.
And I go, you're going to play through that? And he goes, yeah, this is what I play through. He goes, this is the Doors sound. He goes, wait and see. And they mic'd it up, and yeah, it was just like Robby Krieger. I guess that's what he did for the Doors. Like, it's a little amp, but it distorts when you crank it up.
Yeah.
And it just get this big, you know, you mic it and you mix it, and it sounds huge, you know? Okay. So that's what he used to do. So it's the Mau-Mau's a punk band with Robby Krieger from the Doors doing the lead on Psychotic and stuff. So and then years later, Robby, I had a studio, and Robby gave me the tapes back and said, you know, do what you want with it. It's just sitting around, you know. So I took it and I transferred everything. I had a 24-track machine. I was able to transfer everything into a Pro Tools session. And I listened back to it and I go, wait a minute, my drumming sounds really good. And it's because I didn't have the drum triggers on there messing it up. So it's like without the drum triggers, my drums sounded fine.
Okay.
So we got together and we did a few more. We recorded a few more songs at a Mighty Stardust studio called Dirty Horse Studios or something. And we put it all together and we finally put together a Mau-Mau's release like years later. The recording started in 1983, but I don't know when we put it out a few years ago, but it's great record.
Awesome. I actually saw Robby Krieger perform not too long ago at Phonogenic Studios.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was performing with Johnny Kaplan and the Lazy Stars.
Wow, yeah. My friend Rami owns that studio.
Yep. Yeah, I saw him there too. It was so cool.
I'm friends with with Johnny too.
Oh, cool.
Cool guys. We've done gigs together. But Sonic Boom and the Lazy Stars have done gigs together.
Awesome. Now, did you do any gigs with the Gutter Cats back when he was doing that?
Yeah. Well, actually, the lead singer and guitar player of the Gutter Cats was the original guitar player for Black Cherry. And then
Really?
when I kicked him out of the band, he went and started the Gutter Cats.
Oh my gosh.
So that was Josh Blake. And then Josh Blake, and actually Johnny Kaplan auditioned to take Josh Blake's place in Black Cherry. And then they both ended up in the same band together, the Gutter Cats and stuff. But we picked a guy named Curtis Grant instead to replace Josh.
I love hearing all these connecting stories.
Yeah, everybody played with everybody until they could find the right combination. You know, so.
Yeah, y'all kind of knew each other.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings me to the next thing, though. Like, what did you think when you saw an LA scene that was filled with punk turn into what we know as the hair metal scene, and what the popular conscience associates with Los Angeles in the 80s?
You mean, what do I think of it evolving into that?
Yes. Like, what did you think at the time, and then in retrospect? Like,
at the time, okay, during the punk scene was a really good time for me.
mm-hmm.
But I felt it evolving into more of like people were starting to grow their hair long and go and get a little bit more, musical, I think, or rock and roll, glam, I guess you'd call it. So I was in a band called, I ended up, after I left the Mamas, I joined a band called the Joneses, which weren't really punk, but they were kind of trash rock. They had that punk element, but with a little bit of country mixed in. The Rolling Stones used to mix country, and Rolling Stones and Beatles would mix all kinds of cultures in, from whatever they could find, Spanish, French, whatever they could hear, they tried to mix it in with their own music.
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of what rock and roll is too, just taking a bunch of stuff and, Americana kind of stuff and mixing it together.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Joneses, I kind of feel the Joneses were kind of a bridge from, in the Hollywood scene anyway, they were kind of a bridge from what was punk into what became the glam scene.
Yeah.
And we liked Aerosmith, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we picked our Aerosmith song, and then everybody else in Hollywood started picking out their own Aerosmith song to do, because everybody was kind of striving to be like the bad boys of rock and roll at that time. We wanted to bring real rock and roll back, but we and we're getting away from punk, but we want to kind of go the glam 70s kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think Hanoi Rocks had the right idea, and they were like so we were kind of looking at them like they were going to be the next big thing, and they were going to do a big show in Hollywood. We were all kind of striving to be that kind of look, that kind of it's just real rock and roll coming back, right?
Yeah, and kind of like what you were saying before, part of what I love about Hanoi is, again, what you were describing, how it's a confluence of different types of music. They didn't stay in one area.
Yeah, I think Andy McCoy was really into flamenco. Tried to incorporate that into it. But so that's kind of what I saw. That's the direction I saw things going, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then mishaps happened, and unfortunately, and the band fell apart. And a lot of people around Hollywood tried to take that idea, what they were going for, and go with it. But unfortunately, I think the mark kind of got missed. It didn't go the way I would have wanted it to go. Everybody started, instead of being like a glam rock and roll scene, it became like a glam metal scene, which I wasn't really like into the metal scene. I kind of felt with metal, it's like, I mean, it is what it is. If you like it, you like it. But for me, to be as a musician, to get connected with the metal scene, you're pigeonholing yourself into a style that you can't break out of, because there's something about, if you're a metalhead, or it's all about metal, and and so like country doesn't fly, or blues, all that kind of stuff. So I didn't, and I grew up on bluegrass country, so that didn't seem right to me, and I never thought of myself as a metal singer either, because I'm a baritone, a lower voice. I'm really good in the mid-rangey kind of area, like Mick Jagger or somebody.
Yeah.
but to be a heavy metal screamer or whatever, it didn't suit me. And the whole idea of where it came, it was kind of, I mean, I gotta say it was a fun scene for a while. You know, the whole thing was fun, but it wasn't my cup of tea. The music, it was a little bit on the cheesy side for me.
Yeah, and I think it kind of got progressively cheesier with like Warrant and.
Yeah, more and more, and it's like, and it's just, it was ridiculousness to me. But it was.
Oh shoot! I was afraid that was going to happen.
It should have been that one that fell down.
Yeah.
I don't think this one was in the shot. Here. Let's do this.
My goodness, now I know how you really feel. I don't even have to ask about LA Guns anymore. Okay, there we go. Okay. Maybe we should just skip that part of your life. Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Okay, but no, just but if do you really not want to talk about it?
Yeah, talk about anything you want.
Okay, well, it kind of sounds like you really like being in the Joneses. And
the Joneses is a great band. Yeah. I mean, it was it was a true, real, honest rock and roll band. We lived in a house in Venice together. We rehearsed in our garage, and it was very decadent, you know. But for a bunch of young guys growing, in the rock and roll scene, it was just everything you'd want it to be. You know, it's like, I mean, we partied a lot. There's partying, there's girls, there's everything. There's music, there's rock and roll. There's everything. It was just like, and we just, we did a few big shows a month, and that's what paid our rent. We had people kind of taking care of us, and we made some good music. I did a record with them called "Keeping Up with the Joneses," and
which I've listened to. It's wonderful.
Oh, okay, that's me playing drums, and I sang backgrounds. Jeff Drake was a singer, and then Scott Franklin was a bass player, and we had a couple different guitar players, before the pictures and the credits got done for the record, I had already started a band that I was playing my own music in, so they wanted me to make a choice, and since I wasn't committing to the Joneses, they got another drummer that I think just stayed in the band long enough to get his picture taken for the album, and then left, and that was it. So it's like I barely got credit for the drums on that record, but it's me.
Yeah, they're there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that turned into that which we have covered up, LA Guns. Yeah. How did you first meet Tracy?
Well, I was putting him. Okay, the guitar player there was a guy named Johnny Sage that played. That was our guitar player, or the guitar player at the time, or the guitar player. I don't know what. And he got replaced by a guy named Johnny Nation.
Okay.
And so I think we did the record with Johnny Nation. And Johnny Nation, I was trying to introduce songs. I think I stipulated when I joined the band. I was gonna move out of Hollywood before I joined the Joneses, but they said, "Can you stick around? Because we're gonna sign a deal with Geffen, and we got Danny Sugarman's managing us, and Ray Manzarek's supposed to produce us." Or for a time they were talking about having Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols was going to produce us.
Oh my gosh!
And then none of it kind of came together because there was a lot of talk, and I think there was a lot of cocaine and stuff going around and stuff. And so they got tired of listening to talk, and we wanted to do a record, so we just went and signed with an independent label. And I was trying to introduce some songs because I wanted some songs on this record, and Johnny Nation said, "Paul, you're the drummer. You don't really know how to, you shouldn't be writing songs, and you just leave that up to us. We know what we're doing." And I'm like, "Really?" So that's when I started trying to put a side band together where I could introduce my songs because I've been writing songs for years, and I thought, well, I'll just have a side band and just try it out. I felt like Joneses were my main band. But I hooked up with a guy named Mick Cripps, who had just kind of gotten back from England, and he goes, "You look cool." He goes, "What do you play?" And I said, "Well, I play a little of everything." And he goes, "Well, let's put a band together, and whatever we're missing at the end, we'll have you fill in and do that, right?"
Yeah.
And so me and him ended up hooking up with a band called Shanghai. A guy named Eric Leach was singing, and a guy named Taz.
Yep, I actually met Eric Leach at a show that you gave a couple
Yeah.
days ago.
Oh, okay. So you met him. Yeah. That's the band he was in, and so I was trying to show some of my songs. I'd written some songs. Oh, and I was really good friends with the bass player at the time too. And I was showing them songs, and then the band wanted to do my songs. They liked the songs, and then I was trying to show Eric how to sing them. Teaching him my melodies and stuff. But then the rest of the band were saying, Paul, you should be the singer, and that was like not sitting well with Eric, and so it's kind of causing a little friction. So.
And there was kind of like discussion of like maybe we could do a John Paul thing where I sing some, you sing some.
Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of didn't go that way. We were experimenting, and we weren't really solid on it being a band at the time. And then Mick ended up asking me to come jam with him. He said Nicky Beat was jamming with Tracy Guns at the time, and over at his at Nicky Beat's recording studio. He called it Nicky Beat's Love Palace. And they were jamming over there, and Mick said, "Hey, why don't we go over and jam?" Nicky Beat and me used to replace each other in bands all the time because we were both drummers. So he played with the Joneses for a while too, and he also, I'd replace him and he'd replace me, and we'd go back and forth depending on the lineups and stuff. Sometimes he played with the Mamas, sometimes he played with the Joneses. Me too. We both kind of like went back and forth between the two bands.
Okay.
But anyway, he was already playing drums with Tracy, and Mick said, "Why don't you just come over and sing?" So I came over there, and I taught him a couple of my songs, and then we jammed on some Aerosmith songs. I think we did like "Draw the Line" and "Adam's Apple," are the two Aerosmith songs we were playing at the time, and then we did a couple of Alice Cooper songs, and a couple of I think we did a Mitch Ryder song. I did some cover songs, and I taught him some of my own songs. A song called "Word of the Wise Guy," and we got a call that day when we were at rehearsal that day that the Cafe de Grand was closing a week later, and they asked if we wanted to come play the last night that it was going to be open. Okay. Cafe de Grand was a really famous kind of Hollywood punk club. A lot of bands, punk bands that came through town would play at Cafe de Grand. And even if I always hung out there. It was my big hangout at Cafe de Grand. So I said, well, yeah, we got to play closing night. And so we played the first. We rehearsed that week, and a week later we went and did this show. Yeah. So from the time we got together, me, Tracy, Mick, and Nicky Beat, 1 week later, almost a week later, we played that closing night, and it was just a mixed crowd of like punks and long hairs. Mm-hmm. There's like mohawks and leather and glam and makeup and piercings, everything. It was like just this mixed crowd, and it was packed. Yeah. And it went over really well, and so then we decided to keep the band together. And when I was putting the band together, Nick, we came up with a name called Faster Pussycat. That's what we wanted to call the band. And then, but then when we got together with Tracy, a guy that was used to back Tracy, who owned the rights to the name Ellie Guns, his name was Raz, and he had a big settlement from an accident he was in. He was in a wheelchair. And he said, if you'll use the name LA Guns, I'll back the band. I'll pay for your first demos, and I'll give you this van. He had a van that said LA Guns on it, and T-shirts left over that said LA Guns, and matchbook covers, bumper stickers, all this promotional stuff. So we thought, okay, it's just a name. So we decided to go with the name LA Guns. Okay. Again, so it was a brand new band, but we just readapted that name. So it was original band. We just took this name that had been abandoned, attached it to this band. And then when we dropped the name Faster Pussycat, our friend Tammy picked up the name and started a different band called Faster Pussycat. Yeah.
He actually just did an interview with Ricky Rockman. It's pretty good.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Probably doesn't tell that story.
No. But anyway, I'm trying to kind of word this the right way, but whatever else you feel now, did you feel that there was a great chemistry there, that you were making something that was going to stand the test of time? I I mean, whatever else happened, people remember that version of LA Guns and the songs that you wrote.
I thought it was the makings of something that could be good. I was trying to get the guitar playing to tone down to more of a, you know, more melodic and bluesy kind of feel, rather than a, you know, rather than the kind of hot dog heavy metal kind of, you know, mile a minute kind of solos.
Yeah.
You know, I was trying to get it to be, tone it down. It was very difficult, but it was kind of getting there. And it did have something. It had some. It wasn't exactly what I was envisioning because I wanted a little bit of more rough around the edges, kind of punk edge, which we were, but we had those elements. But then it was like mixed with a little bit of metal, and I was just trying to eliminate that metal side of it.
Okay.
And so it didn't quite come that way, but it did happen eventually. Because Tracy only stayed in the band a little while, and then we got and then he left because he thought he was going to have this big deal with a Penthouse Playmate that was signed to Atlantic, and he went out to New York and stayed with her and promised to be back for this big show that we had at the Troubadour, and it was sold out. It was a sold out show. We had plastered the town with flyers, and we knew everybody was going to be there, and Motley Crue was there, managers, record labels, everything else. And he called us that day and said, I'm not coming back. And we had a sold out show that we couldn't play because we didn't have a guitar player.
My goodness. How did you deal with that?
Well,
How did you react to
we
it?
didn't want to upset the promoters by just like not doing it, you know. So we thought, well, we'll make up for it by asking our friends Guns N' Roses to play our show. So we did, and they did. They went and played them. They did a great show right in front of our crowd, you know, and their crowd too. But it was really sad for me to watch on the sidelines to watch Guns N' Roses play to our sold out crowd. And from that time on, Guns N' Roses and LA Guns were neck and neck right up until that point. And after that show, there was no catching up to them. They took off after that. And we had to regroup, so it took us months. It took us a few months to kind of get back on the scene and play, and that's when we asked Robert Stoddard to join. Robert Stoddard was from a band called Dogs Some More. He started a band in England called Dogs Some More. And
right, with Joe Almeida.
Yeah, and he came back to America, and we caught up to him, and I always wanted to play in a band with him because I was a big fan of his. Because when I first moved into town in 1980, he had a hit on the radio called LAPD. It was like a reggae song called LAPD.
Yep.
And I wanted to do the song too, so we eventually did our own version of it.
Yeah, I really like your version of it, by the way.
Yeah, well, thank you. That was more rock and roll. He did it more reggae style. But so Robert was a great songwriter. So with Robert, I had another good songwriter that I could collaborate with, and plus he sang. So I had backup vocals, and he was a lead singer too. You know, so and he looked good, and he was bluesy. He was more of a Keith Richards style player. So we had that Rolling Stones element, and it was more of a punk roll. What I always wanted to do with the band, with LA Guns, my vision of it was I wanted a punk version of Rolling Stones, and that's the vision I had for my songs as well. I didn't want any metal stuff. I wanted it to be a punk version of Rolling Stones. It's exactly what I wanted.
Okay.
And with Robert, I had it, and then and that changed again. You know, as we kind of gotten closer to getting a record, we regrouped, and we got to a point where we're selling out clubs again. And then when we got to a point where we had a lot of label interest, Mick was really pushing to be a 5-piece. He wanted 2 guitars and really fill out the sound and stuff. And he kept pushing for Tracy to be back in the band. We were auditioning people, and I didn't want Tracy back in the band, and neither did Nikki. And I think Robert was kind of indifferent, just kind of whatever. He was kind of just go with the flow kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then when we let Tracy back in the band, it just became a whole different. Well, we kind of let him sit in on shows, and then he was just back in the band. And then one by one, everybody's throat got slit. You know, Robert was out, then I was out, then Nikki was out.
I can't even believe you let him back in after what happened with the Troubadour show. I didn't actually know that story, so I'm kind of.
Oh, I can't believe it either. But it was Mick that was pushing for it, and coincidentally, Mick's the only one that lasted in the band. We got Trace back in the band. Everybody, the band. So what the public got to hear as LA Guns was not LA Guns. Okay. It was a whole different. It was a put together band that. A lot of things happened. They were after my publishing. They were after the songs, and they got them. They took them. They stole them. They got my songs.
And you had to go get them back.
Yeah, I sued them, but it's like, that they wanted me to sign a deal where I was going to sign over 4/5 of the songs to them. When Polygram was going to sign us, and when I didn't want to do that, their solution was just get another singer and replace me and take my songs, and make me go after them. So that's what happened. And I think the main core of the Elegant set has been what I wrote for them, and that's they've made a living off this their entire life. Their whole career is based on stuff I did for them, but nobody knows it. Hardly anybody knows it.
Well, I mean, you're on. At least you got the credit back.
Oh, the millions of people that are going to see this are going to.
Yeah, they'll know. They'll know. But anyway, like you mentioned Guns N' Roses before. Like when you heard them, did you think that was more along the lines of the sound you wanted, or?
I liked them. I actually didn't like them that much in the clubs. That when I used to hear them, I mean, I liked all of them as people. I hung out with them. I was friends with Axl. I was friends with all of them. Mm-hmm. I thought they had the right idea too. There was a lot about what they did that I really liked.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of Axl's voice, because I was impressed with how high he could get, range wise, and the power he had. That was good, but I thought he stayed up there too much at the top of his range. But then when they did the first album, mm-hmm. I was actually really impressed because I don't know if it was that somebody was producing him, telling him to do things, or they just experiment a lot. But when they came out with the first album, he used his entire range, the low part and the high part. So it was all. So I thought that first record was actually pretty good. I was good, and of course it's good because it sold millions of records and it's really popular. So so that I was really impressed with that first record.
Okay.
The first one.
So Use Your Illusions, kind of.
Yeah. Live in the club scene around in town. I thought they were better than most of what was going around, and there was a lot of elements that I thought could really kind of take off with them. And when they came out with that first record, I think it was really well put together, and that launched them. So.
I mean, it's when I look at Guns N' Roses, that's one of the only instances where I look at what's known as the hair metal scene, and I think that kind of the best man won. I mean, that's a band that went mainstream that I also like. A lot of the ones that went mainstream were ones that I really didn't like Bon Jovi, Poison. I could go on. Like, were there bands there that you thought were wonderful that you thought should have made it? I mean, did you feel kind of the same way? Motley Crue's another one where, again, they got big, but they've never been a band I've liked that much.
Yeah, I didn't like any of those. I remember I didn't like when I was getting ready to sign with Polygram Records. They were like, we're looking for our hit, and they made me go see their top acts were Bon Jovi and Cinderella, and so they made me go see them and say, we want songs like that. And it's like I didn't want to write anything like what they did.
I don't blame you.
And then so they want party, like they were worried about my lyrics, because my lyrics were pretty dark, because I was kind of living in a dark world at the time, and I wrote as a songwriter. I write about what I feel, right? Mm-hmm. And I was kind of immersed in the heroin lifestyle, and what was going around in the punk scene, and it was just a certain kind of lifestyle. So I wrote about it, and I think they were scared of my lyrics, But on the other hand, it's like that's what launched. The focus in publicizing the Rolling Stones was put on the bad side of what they did, and Rest or whatever they did. The Beatles were cleaned up and like made to be, very,
squeaky.
yeah, squeaky clean pop, you know. Rolling Stones were more decadent, you know, and that's what made them okay. Same with Aerosmith. They were like the bad boys of rock and roll. So with LA Guns and Guns N' Roses, we were both trying to compete to be the bad boys of rock and roll. But with Polygram, they were saying this kind of scared them because they had like this, you know, all-American kind of. I mean, at the time, Bruce Springsteen was at the top of the charts, you know, this all-American rocker, and then their top two acts were like Bon Jovi and Cinderella, and very clean party rock, you know, like not, you know. And I was writing real dark lyrics, and they did that scared them. And on the other hand, what scared them launched Guns N' Roses.
Yes, exactly.
You know, so they were fools, you know, but. So they wanted me anyway. They wanted me to write songs like Bon Jovi or whatever, or something more tame, right? And then I finally wrote this. I had this song called "Love and Hate" that I had introduced to the band a couple times, and it got rejected because they said it sounds too much like a Dead Boys song. Twice, and I've written different lyrics for it, and I've tried to disguise it and keep bringing it in there. And then at the end, towards the end, like right when Polygram was thinking about signing us, I was off in a corner playing with Robert Starter, playing a song I wrote called "Love and Hate," and the A&R guy Bob Scarrows said, "Who wrote that song?" I said, "Well, I wrote it a while ago. It's called "Love and Hate." He goes, "Well, that's our first single." He goes, "We're definitely signing the band, and that's going to be our first single." And that's what clinched the record deal for the band. And of course, my lyrics were, you know, stripped away from me, and they changed the song to "Sex Action" and released it as the very first single. And that's the song that got them signed. They took my name completely off it and wrote. I don't know who came up with those lyrics, but it's kind of an absolutely embarrassing title for me, and to be attached to my song. I mean, I know people love it, or you know, people, or they don't, you know. But for me, it wasn't anything I would write a song about. You know, it wasn't me, and it's my song. Music.
I mean, it is what it is. Like I enjoy LA Guns, and I'm kind of learning some new stuff about them as we're talking.
Yeah.
But, you know, were there any songs
I have to be careful sometimes when I'm talking to an LA Guns fan. You know what I say. You know, it's touchy, but I mean these days I just kind of let it out. You know, it's like I mean I can't. I'm just going to tell the truth. You know, I mean, but I've in past in interviews, it's like I want to be careful, like what I say about like if I don't like a recording, how they did my songs, if I don't like it and stuff, and I may be putting down something that you may appreciate, you know, or you like, or that you grew up with, even, you know, it's like but you know, it's honest. That's what happened.
Well, I'd rather you be honest than otherwise. Like it doesn't matter what I like or don't like, so just be honest. And but were there any songs that ended up on that record that you felt kind of proud of? And
on the record?
That you thought turned out okay. I mean, Sex Action, I guess not, but any of
well, the one thing, the ballad, there was a ballad I wrote called "Shattered Mirror" that was destined to be a hit for LA Guns. But when we let Tracy back in the band, he wanted to be a part of the first ballad, because ballads were the ones that would launch bands, right, back in those days.
Sweet Child of Mine.
Yeah, so he wanted to be a part of the ballad, and so he wanted me to write a song with him, and so I sat down and we put some music together, and I wrote these lyrics about my girlfriend called "One Way Ticket," and so "One Way Ticket to Love" became the ballad for the first record, and "Shattered Mirror" got put aside and never got recorded, and it's a great song, but this became the first ballad, but I didn't sing it. Phil Lewis sang my lyrics. And I remember I got invited down to Irvine Meadows, and it was like, you know, there's a lot of people there. It was like 10,000 people or something at Irvine Meadows.
Okay.
And they did that song, and this is a weird story. I remember I wrote the lyrics, I wrote the melody. It's my song. I put the arrangement together. I did it. Tracy had a part in it. It was a collaboration. But it was my song, and this is one song that didn't really change too much, and it's like, and they did some justice to it. And then I and this is something I wrote about somebody I really, really cared about too. Somebody I was in love with. And I looked behind me, and there was all these lights, the whole stadium full of lighters going up with my song. And even though it wasn't me singing, I thought, I wrote this. That all these people are enjoying. There's 10,000 people up there just loving this song that I wrote, even if I wasn't singing it, you know. And it really touched me. And then I was standing next to my drummer in Black Cherry, right? And
Scott Lips, right?
Yeah, Scott Lips. Yeah, he was standing right next to me, right? And I wasn't saying it. I was just like, I was just amazed that like there's 10,000 people enjoying my song.
Yeah, it's a beautiful moment.
And that was a beautiful moment. Yeah. And then I hear this girl, like right on the other side of Scott, goes, "Oh my God, I love this song," right?
Aww.
And I thought, and that made me feel good too. And then Scott looks at her and he goes, "You love the song?" She goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "This guy here wrote it." And she goes, "Yeah, right."
Aww.
And it was like, so it's
well,
like,
that's a mood kill, but
yeah, it was just the weirdest thing. It was like I was touched that all these people are loving my song, but on the other hand, it was like tearing my heart out that nobody knew I really wrote it. You know, it's horrible, but it's good and bad. And I had a little success, and I made some people appreciate. I had some people appreciating my music, but on the other hand, I'm not getting credited for that music. People don't know.
True double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Black Cherry then.
Okay.
All right, cool. So, LA Guns ended. How did Black Cherry start?
Well, I hooked up with at first I got a hold of my friend Mark Lewis, was my guitar player in Mad Captions.
Yes.
You know, so stayed friends with him for years, and he's a really good guitar player. So I started this band with him and a guy named Bart Warburton, who I'm good friends with now. He's Ukulele Bart. He's a world-renowned, famous ukulele player. He switched to ukulele. And then I was looking for a drummer. I found this guy, Scott, and was really impressed with him as a drummer. He didn't have the feel I wanted, but I was really impressed with that double drumming thing, and I never had a real, you know. So, and he's a really big fan of LA Guns. So he was a young guy, and he had like Bon Jovi kind of hair, and so I got him together and put this band together. Oh, and Bruce Moreland he was a bass player from a band called Concrete Blonde.
Okay.
And he played in Wall of Voodoo for a while. So he's a good friend of mine, bass player, really good bass player.
Okay.
And we had a pretty good lineup. And I did our first show supporting for Jane's Addiction.
Oh, okay.
I did a couple of good shows, and I had a lot of interest in me. Every label in town was calling me, wanting to sign the band, like right from the get-go, because they knew what I'd done in LA Guns, and everybody knew me. So I was still on the top of my game.
Yeah.
But at this time too, I was my health and my mental state was really kind of going downhill. I was physically I couldn't keep going with what I was doing. You know, the lifestyle I was living. I was addicted, and I just couldn't keep going on. So I told the band, I said, you know, you guys, I just gotta go get my act together. I don't have the energy for this band or anything else, and I gotta get my life together. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I needed to get out of LA and away from everybody that I was using with, all my connections, whatever, and just went home, and I went through rehab, and and I stayed with my mom I stayed with my parents, moved back in with my parents for like 6 months, and I think I got a job at Tower Records, and I was going to go back to school. I was thinking about going back to school, and I was just trying to just keep myself, and I started getting used to like being back away from LA, and I thought, I'm never going back to LA. That's what I told myself, right? Mm-hmm. And
now, was that when like you got sober once and for all?
Huh?
So you got sober once and for all then?
No, I went out a couple more times. It took a few tries.
Okay, well.
But that was the first time, the first major time that I got that I said, okay, that's it. Most of the time I was in Black Cherry. I was sober.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I cleaned up. Um, and then I left them to start the band, and then my Scott took it upon himself to put a whole different lineup together. He got Josh Blake and David Walsh, and really talented people, and then we found a bass player, Mike Stevens, and they were still looking for a singer, and actually Scott from the Mammals was trying to get me to come join his band Gang War and stuff, and people were trying to talk me into coming back into LA, and I kept saying no, and I think what happened is I picked up a Music Connection magazine once, and I was reading this guy, Bill Lewis, who I'd never met, and Kelly Nichols, who I'd never met. Didn't know anything about me. They'd never met me, and they were doing this interview talking about how I wasn't really kind of getting what the songs were all about, so they had to change my lyrics, and they said I was a space cadet in the meetings with the A&R, and was saying how they had to basically kind of doing this interview saying they had to come in and save the day because of me, and I was ruining everything or something, and I didn't know how to write songs and this and that, and they were doing an interview to promote the record that was coming out.
Yeah. No,
and,
Kelly I thought you never played with Kelly. You didn't.
No.
Did you know?
That's why I said they didn't know me. I've never met them, and but yet they're doing this interview and talking about me like authority on the subject of me, and saying that I didn't know how to write. I didn't know what the songs were all about. I wasn't getting what they were all about. And actually, I was the only one that knew what they were about because I was writing from the heart.
Yeah.
And I was very passionate about what I do, and music for me is an expression, and I use it to express myself. I've been a musician since I was a little kid, and there's nothing that stops me from playing music.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I have a big record deal or not. I'll always play. And but it irked me that they were like, wait a minute, you're talking about my music, and I got an advanced copy of the record, and I realized my name's not on my songs.
Yeah.
And I go, and I call them out. I said, what's this all about? I said, you can use my songs, but just make sure I get credited right, and I want my publishing. Not giving it up.
Yeah.
And
That's the way it should be.
They took my name off the songs, and it's like they had no problem going out, playing music, and Phil Lewis is doing interviews talking about how he wrote this, what his ideas, just making up these stories about what sparked this inspiration, and how he came up with this particular song or this lyric and stuff. And he's talking about my music, and it blew me away. So I felt like at that point, I had something I had to come back and deal with that. First of all, with my music.
Well, shoot. Scared that was gonna happen. Okay.
I guess we don't like that band either.
Yeah, I guess not. Do you like Van Halen at all?
These are the only two bands that matter, I guess.
Yeah, that's fittingly.
I didn't really. This is out of the blue. Yeah, I don't really like particularly what Eddie Van Halen did for rock and roll.
Really?
With everything with all the guitar players that came after him, emulating him. I'm not a fan of that style. I realize that from a lot of guitar players I played with, they would kill me if they heard me saying this. But I realized that he was a big influence on a lot of guitar players. A lot of guitar players look at him as a hero. And for me, that style didn't really grab me. But I did like David Lee Roth. I thought he was I don't know why it was called Van Halen, because he's, to me, the star of that band. Yeah. David Lee Roth. He's just an all-around entertaining guy. And I like his voice and his personality. He's an entertainer.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
Because when you're in a rock and roll band, you're more than just you're not just a rock star. You don't go there and say, "Oh, I'm so cool," and want people to worship you. That's a real big turnoff to me. If you get in a band because you want to be worshipped and attract girls or whatever, it's about music, right?
Yeah.
And more than just music, when you're out there performing, you have an obligation to be an entertainer, And if you entertain people and they go away from that concert enjoying what you did, you've done your job.
Mhm.
And to me, that's what David Lee Roth did. He was a great entertainer. He might, you know, he may have been an asshole in person or whatever, but he knew how to entertain. You know.
Okay, I know nothing about him personally, but I agree with you. I do like David Lee Roth, and apparently it was actually his idea to call it Van Halen because he just liked the sound of the name. I mean, it's
Really?
Yeah, like
That I didn't know.
Yeah, like it's you don't know exactly what it is, but it sounds a bit intriguing. So he said, let's call it Van Halen.
Yeah.
So that was that. But anyway, Black Cherry. I heard that you know, you had difficulty signing a deal for them because of what was going on with trying to get.
Yeah, it's in retrospect, it probably would have been better for me just to let LA Guns have my songs because everybody knew me and my reputation as a singer and a songwriter, and or I should just let it kind of go for a while and sue them later at a later date after I signed the band. But at the time, there was like 9 songs that were going on a record that had already gone gold, may have gone multi-platinum. Who knows? You know, what if it had gone multi-platinum? I'd have been banging my head against the wall if I'd let these songs go.
Yeah.
You know, without any credit, it's like, you know, there's 9 songs. Like, how do you just let 9 of your own songs that you wrote go? They didn't just steal one song. It was 9, you know? And it's like, how do you do that?
Yeah,
So I felt like, well, of course I got to get my songs back. And as it turned out, my only option was to sue. They weren't going to give them back unless I sued, so I had to sue. But of course, the lawyers, me being an unknown artist without a penny to my name, I had to sign a contingency deal. So you know, the lawyers stretched it out as long as they could. So they kept this lawsuit going, and no label in town wanted, even though they all wanted to sign me, nobody wanted to get involved with a major lawsuit. And also, me being an unknown artist suing the biggest label in town was a big no-no. It's like, you know, it doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong. Who cares if I'm right? I'm suing a big label and they got a lot of power. So, yeah, it's like I'm basically could not do a thing. I was just, you know, I was blackballed, basically. You know, I just couldn't sign a deal.
Well, I mean...
And they were straight up with me, too. We can't sign you while you're suing the biggest label in town. So I was at the point where I even gave LA Guns more than they should have gotten because I got to the point with in desperation with trying to move on with my own career that I was telling my lawyer, I don't care, just sign anything. Just get this lawsuit over so I can sign my deal. And then after I did get them signed, I ended up making concessions that I shouldn't have been made.
Yeah, because I was going to say you're credited on 5, but you're saying it was actually 9.
Yeah, I'm only credited on 5.
Yeah, I mean, everything I looked at, you're credited on 5 of them. So
let's see,
where's
that?
Well, on the original, this is the original pressing, so they don't have your name on here. But when
I can still look at it. Okay, No Mercy, I wrote.
Okay.
That I wrote before I was even in the band, and the only reason they got credit is because we did an arrangement that was with all that middle part with all the breaks and stuff.
Uh-huh.
That was them. They worked on pretty extensively on that as a band, so you know I gave credit for that. So we made it a band song. So I wrote that. I wrote all the lyrics. I wrote all the melody, everything like that. So that's my song,
okay.
and it was my song before the band.
Sex Action.
If I redid that, I probably wouldn't credit them. I'd leave that whole middle part out because I didn't, it's kind of overkill anyway.
Okay.
Sex Action with Love and Hate, that's mine. One More Reason, I wrote that behind. One More Reason was called One More Reason to Die, and I wrote it right over here in Hollywood. There was a place called Spaghetti Factory, and I went parked in the alley there, and I had nowhere to go because I had no gas in my car. And I couldn't drive anywhere. I had to be at a rehearsal, and I knew that I was going to get to rehearsal, but I didn't know how I was going to get home from rehearsal. And I was really depressed. I was strung out. I was jonesing. I was, I had.
I know.
I was suicidal, and I think I was like kind of going through a hard time with my girlfriend, breaking up or whatever. I didn't know what was going on. I was kind of basically. I didn't know where. I was in a weird state of mind. I was kind of like nowhere to go, kind of thing, and I was suicidal, and that's what the song "One More Reason to Die" is exactly about that. And I brought it into when I went to rehearsal that night, I had the lyrics and melody all together, and I did it as a Hummer, but that song's mine 100%, One More Reason to Die. I gave Tracy some credit as default because I used him to find the, help find the diatonic chords that supported the melody and everything. But that was my song. Electric Gypsy, I think, was a song that Phil brought in from another band. It was not even an LA Gun song.
Okay.
But that's not mine. Nothing to Lose is mine. Had different lyrics, but that's mine as well.
Okay.
Bitch is Back is mine. That's not my title, but that's mine too. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cry No More. One Way Ticket, of course. I just talked about that.
Yeah.
6. Well, Never Enough from the second record, and there was something else, but I think there's 9.
Okay.
I think 9. There might be 8 if I'm wrong or something, but I'd have to look back at the lawsuit.
Okay.
But I think there was 9 that we were suing for.
Okay. Well, on a happier note,
yeah,
a lot of the music you did with Black Cherry is great. Again, I love the song "Don't Let Tomorrow Pass You By."
Oh, thank you.
It's beautiful. Like, do you ever play it in your live shows anymore?
Yeah, recently I started playing it again. I don't know what happened. I was out somewhere and somebody that knew me from a long time ago requested that song, and I didn't remember it. I remembered the song very well, but I wasn't sure if I remembered how to play it. And I played it, and I was like, oh yeah, I don't know why I don't play this anymore. I played in a little bit of different key when I played it acoustically than with the band, because with the band I kind of belt out things more, so I have it in a different key. I can play it for you if you want.
That'd be awesome.
You want me to play it?
Yes, I would love that.
Here's the guitar.
Here. Get this for you. You actually have a gig tonight, right?
Yeah, maybe I'll play this song tonight. Yeah, I'm playing with tonight. I'm playing with a fiddle player, a duet, at a place called Hennessy's Tavern down in Seal Beach. And do I have a capo with me?
And don't you have a residency there right now as well?
It's not a resume. It's not a residency. They just hire me all the time. they love me down there, so they just the guy that books there just likes me, so he brings me down there. And I do different things. I do different. Sometimes I play there with a full band. Sometimes I play there with a duet with my guitar player Joe Almeida. But right now he was supposed to play with me tonight, but right now his hand is acting up, which I hope he's okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. That you said that was happening.
Yeah, his doctor said it's trigger finger, but he's seen a specialist on the 30th of this month, and we're hoping that I don't want him. He's laying off right now playing because he doesn't want to do permanent damage. But something about his hand, his thumb is locking up. The picking hand. But he's like my secret weapon. Joe Almeida is like my favorite guitar player that I've ever played with. And it's really nice to have him beside me when I'm playing. But I play solo there a lot, and I play. Tonight I got Emily B is filling in. She's a fiddle player, and she's really good. So it'd be cool playing with her too. Probably cut all this tuning out. I do edit, or are you just gonna let it run?
Well, just who knows? Let's see how it turns out.
I didn't think I'd be performing, but
me either. Again, I appreciate it. It's really nice of you.
Don't let tomorrow pass you by. let your love me just die. And I need to question why. Let me make sure I'm playing it in the right key. Okay, start over. You can cut that part out.
Okay.
I don't care. You can leave mistakes in and out. That's rock and roll, mistakes, you know.
Yeah. But sorry, go ahead.
Sometimes I change keys, you know, from time to time for a different feel or whatever, or just depending on if I'm playing acoustically or electrically. So they just take on a different feel, and then I gotta kind of remember where am I at, you know. Don't let tomorrow pass you by. Don't let your love for me just die. Ain't no need to question why. Just don't say that last goodbye. Don't let tomorrow pass you by. If I could shoot all of your charms to my arms, and I would forever feel so high. I would live just to turn you on and see our troubles gone, and never let tomorrow pass you by. Now I see you passing by. I'm gazing out at you and all the things you do. Falling stars are in my eyes, and I wish upon them you would stay. Don't let tomorrow pass you by. Future ain't what it used to be. Now it's looking back at me. I won't let tomorrow pass you by. We're my one and only. Till the bitter end. When I was lonely, you were my friend. Oh yeah, to the end, to the end. And now there's nothing left to say. Just look inside my world and watch me float away. Violet winds have calmed the sky. Now I know that I will never let tomorrow pass you by. Don't let tomorrow pass you by. Don't let your love for me just die. Ain't no need to question why. Just don't say that last goodbye. Don't let tomorrow pass you by. Don't let tomorrow pass you by.
That was gorgeous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
a long time ago I wrote that. I was actually
Go ahead.
I was actually out on the street playing that somewhere over here in Glendale, over by the Americana.
Oh, cool.
And somebody walked up and they said, Paul. And they said, I always loved that song you did, Don't Let Tomorrow Pass You By. And I hadn't played it in like 30 years or so.
Did you recognize the person?
Yeah. Oh, no. They're an old friend. I hadn't seen him in like, it's her. I hadn't seen her in like 20 years or something. She was with the guitar player from some big band. I think they're called, I don't know. I can't remember.
Okay. But still, great story. And again, thank you. That was beautiful. One of my favorite of your songs. Okay, so Black Cherry. Again, it kind of sounds like they're like musically you were happy with it, but professionally, it just got to a point where you couldn't sign a deal. Yeah. Like, how did you eventually come to the decision?
Well, here's the thing about Black Cherry. Black Cherry, I was really the first lineup was, I thought, really, really good. I had this guitar player, Josh Blake, that was kind of real bluesy style. That could sing really good backups for me and looked good and everything, which is all big pluses. And then I had this other guitar player who was just a virtuoso guitar player, Dave Walsh. Just amazing player and very tasteful. But he could do all the hot dog style too that everybody liked at the time. But I didn't mind the way he did it because it was so tasteful the way he did it. He did it real melodic. Everything was thought out. He's just a really, really amazing guitar player. So I was happy with that. And I was happy with the drumming and the bass playing too. I mean, they were good, but being from everybody knowing me from a band called LA Guns, I was attracting that kind of style. So I wasn't quite getting what I wanted. Like was the real bluesy Rolling Stones kind of element.
Yeah.
So I wasn't quite getting there. It was almost there, but it was a little short of the mark, but it's like it was good. It's still, nonetheless, it was what it was, and it was good. It was a really good band. And my songwriting had gotten a lot stronger at the time, so we had some really good material, and we were selling out clubs too. We were doing really well, and I didn't have really good management, but I had like Capitol Records calling me, Arista, Virgin, A&M put us in the studio.
And I saw that you guys opened for Iggy Pop.
Yeah, we were getting good shows, and it's like, I was meeting with Capitol Records and this, but they were all saying, like, so what's going on with this lawsuit? And I said, well, I'm trying to get it settled. I'm trying to get my songs back, but I wrote those songs, and I'm credited, I got gold records. And they're saying, well, yeah, the bottom line is we can't sign the band. Until you finish this lawsuit. And so 3 years it was stretching out, right? And I couldn't get the band. So I just wanted, let's end it. I need to get my band signed. So by the time I did finally settle, I get the thing settled and was able to move on with my life. I would show up at all these labels, all these A&R people that wanted to sign the band before. I was going to them with demo tapes, and they're just saying, we're not doing that anymore. And I go, what do you mean? Well, that 80s rock is over. It's the days of Nirvana now. We're looking for grunge. And I said, well, but you don't understand. What I have on this tape is not what LA Guns did or what Black Cherry was doing. Because by this time I was chopping demos that me and Joe had done. And Joe's like real bluesy. He's like we're doing like a mix of Americana, country, blues, folk, everything else. So I couldn't go to labels and convince them anything. They wouldn't even listen to it. It was like just my mere association with LA Guns was a kiss of death for me.
Basically, they wouldn't listen to your music. They just saw you.
They knew me. They knew that I was associated with LA Guns. So they said, "We're not doing that. We're not doing anything associated with that anymore. We're into grunge now. We're going a whole different route." They didn't have imagination.
They didn't.
Well, I don't know. But plus, I didn't know who to go to. I didn't have good, strong management. I probably, if I'd hooked up with the right people, I could have gotten by all that. I just never. The cards just didn't line up. It doesn't matter because I got disillusioned with the music business as a whole, you know, with all the rip-offs and lawsuits and lies and, you know, and how deceitful people could be, that I didn't even bother trying to get a record deal. After that, me and Joe kind of just went into songwriting mode. We wrote songs. We hibernated in our rooms and got together and put our ideas together, you know, and then I had family. You know, he would take off on a tour with his old band, or I'd take off on it. So we periodically get together and write, and then split up. We just never really did anything with our music.
Okay.
We did put one record out, and now we got another one. Finally in the can. It's like probably the best thing I've ever done musically. And it's just kind of when both of us kind of got disillusioned. We just became two people that would just get together and write. We were basically hermits, you know, in the music world. We wrote some amazing stuff that, you know, we don't have any behind us that can market it and give it a life that it really needs, you know.
Really? I mean, you think that if you went to a promotional company or a record company or whatever, they couldn't find a way to?
Probably, but we didn't do that. Not with the first record. The first record we got, after we put it out, we got caught up with raising families.
Okay.
So I had a son that I was raising. He got married and had a daughter. So now that my son's moved away and gone to college, I'm putting a lot more into music now. I'm coming back, and Joe at the same way. His daughter's getting a little older, a little more independent. So he's finding ways for us to hook up again. Even though now we used to live in the same town. Now he lives in Santa Monica, and I live way over here in Glendale. So it's like a world away. So it's difficult, but we've been making the effort, and we've gotten to the point where we got a record in the can, 16 songs, a lot of songs, and they're all good. So, but we still want to taper it down to like maybe 11 or 12. Okay. Of the best, and we wanted to make it a concept record, and I gotta say it's probably the best thing I've ever done musically, and I think it should have a life. And so we're gonna take it and shop it around a little bit and see if we can get somebody behind it. You know, even though we're like old now, and I just turned 60, and Joe's up there, you know, his late 50s, but I think the music is so good that it can't not do anything, you know. And I just signed actually a deal on the music part of it. Okay. So with Brewhouse Music, just a little placement company, and they really wanted to, you know, shop my songs. So I said, fine, you know, go for it. And in the past, I've had like $50,000 deal, you know, development deals offered to me, and my lawyers in the past have had me turn down everything. You know, little publishing deals that get offered to me and stuff. And it's like, no, we're going to hold out and get you a $500,000, you know, major record deal. We don't want this $50,000 deal. And then, in retrospect, I should have accepted those deals because it might have led to like a $500,000 or $1 million record deal later on. I needed somebody to put some money behind me, and my lawyers had me turn down things that I probably shouldn't have. You know, I had opportunities, I just didn't know which ones to pursue because they said there's a better one around the corner. You know, okay. So, but I think, you know.
By the way, the project that he's involved with right now is called Sonic Boom with Joe Almeida, who is the guitarist for Dogs Do More.
Yeah.
So, again, go listen to their first record. But as far as that
first record's called Sundown Yellow Moon. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know if it exists anymore.
I found it online. So
did you?
I did.
It's online. Okay. Oh yeah. I think you can get it on iTunes. Yeah, maybe. Mm-hmm. But I think the physical copies are gone. But the next one, we don't know what it's going to be called. But there's a new one coming out. Okay. Hopefully by May or June we'll have it out.
One thing I'm curious about is whether or not you might consider making some vinyl copies of it, because vinyl has had such a resurgence in recent years. Like, would you be open to...
Actually, with this record that we just finished, Joe and I were going to put a crowdfunding campaign and try to promote getting the fans behind it, making a fan record. And then we just kind of changed our minds because first of all, Pledge Music, which was I think it was Pledge Music. One of them, the main one that was like good for rock and roll records and stuff. We were gonna start a campaign, but then they went under, and everybody that pledged everybody that was donating music money to get these albums to help support these artists the company didn't pay out the bands to be able to produce the product to give to those fans. So all the fans got ripped off, and the bands were left, like saying sorry to the fans. We didn't know that this was going to happen. So the fans got ripped off out of their money. The bands didn't have the money to produce and give out of their own pocket to produce and give the fans the money, so they could put everybody in a bad position. And so we backed out of that, and then we were looking into others, that like Kickstarter or whatever, and then we just decided, you know what, let's not risk it. Let's just finish the record out of our own pocket, and we're like working on writing checks and stuff, going out working, playing music, doing gigs, and I take that money and I put it back into my music, and so paying for it right out of our own pocket. So but in the end, we're gonna have a record in the can that's completely owned by us, completely in our control. We own the masters, we own all the music because we wrote all the music, and it's our record, and we do whatever we want. Like today, this guy named Wesley Cole contacted me from Brewhouse Music and said, I want to, we love your music, we want to pitch it, get it out, some commercials and TV shows and stuff like that. And I was able, and what they're looking for is music that's free and clear, which this is. I said, you got my permission, It's like, because, if I was with a label, I'd have to go to the label and say, hey, can I, get involved with these people over there? So that's one good thing about it. But the other thing is, like, now we've got this album in the can that's all ours. Now we've got a finished record that we can present to a label, and we don't have to ask the label to put the money into helping us make this record.
Or have them kind of looking over your shoulder, tweaking it as you make it.
So like we can control who masters it and whatever. Making changes or something. We've done it. We did it all the way we wanted it. It's going to sound exactly how we want it to sound. Produced by us. We have a great producer that's working with us. A guy named Gabe Lowry. Been doing the engineering. We did a lot of recording at Fox 4 Studio. We also did some recording with our old bass player, Mighty Stardust, at his studio, Dark Horse, and then we did some of the recording up in Canada. So it's a mix of so it's kind of cool because it has a different sound. There's different sound depending on where we're at and what time, what musicians we have available. They all have like these different flavors, and the album is really diverse. We have like every kind of thing you can imagine stuck in there. Like it's Spanish influences, bluegrass, blues, rock and roll.
Looking forward to hearing it.
So it's just an eclectic mix of a lot of Americana styles, and but basically. So we're gonna, we couldn't see like doing a Kickstarter campaign and then having our living rooms filled with boxes of vinyl, CDs, and all this stuff, and then trying to keep track of and organizing track of like shipping, stamping, and going up to the post office and this stuff. It's a lot of work.
I know what you mean. One thing that actually surprised me when I went to see you at Sugar Mill was the fact that you weren't selling vinyl while you were there. Like, would it be possible for you guys to take vinyl with you when you perform and then sell it?
Yeah, I would love to. And actually, when we were doing our Kickstarter campaign, that's one of the things we considered was printing up vinyl. But now I think we'll probably leave it up to a label. If we get some label that wants to print this up, physical copies of it. I mean, eventually, if we don't find anybody that's interested, can lay it out, we may just go and print up some copies ourselves, so we have it, and then have it for fans, anybody that wants it. But we're gonna see, leave it up to a label, see if we can get some CDs and vinyl. I would love to have a vinyl record out. I miss the days of vinyl, and then and it is kind of making a little comeback too.
Yeah, I was not born during the initial days of vinyl, but I love it now.
Yeah.
So it's cool. One thing that we kind of skipped over was your visual style. I mean, how did you want to look as first a drummer and then a frontman? I mean, when I look at pictures of you when you were singing in the 1980s, you kind of remind me of Andy McCoy. I know he didn't sing in Hanoi Rocks, but just that style. I mean, did you have any influences in that way? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the Beatles and Rolling Stones and punk bands and stuff there, and my own, and like people I played in bands with too. My peers that played with me in bands. We'd go shopping together, and it's like, oh, that looks cool on you. Oh, you should wear these, or you know, hey, I got these cowboy boots that might look good on you. You know, it's like I had these cowboy boots that my friend, my bass player, gave me in the Mau Mau's. He said, look, they look like Keith Richards. You know, again, they're suede, brown suede, and if you fold down the side flaps, it'll look just like the ones Keith Richards had in this photo here, and you know, so yeah, I mean, of course, you know, it's like I'm in the rock and roll world, you know. So I looked at album covers, I looked at what everybody's wearing. I looked at album covers like this, and said, oh, it's cool. And like, I want to get a necklace like that or a shirt like that, you know.
Yeah.
Or wear an open vest or that hat. Look.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, yeah. I mean, so whatever come along, you know, young, you know, old, you know, I always loved Bob Dylan, Jimi Hendrix and stuff. That flash, and you know that hat and stuff, that big wide brim hat.
Yeah, now that you say that, I can kind of see that when I remember pictures of you when you were saying that. Okay.
So yeah, of course. I mean, you're influenced by everything going on. I mean, if you're in the rock, I mean, I'm sure you're influenced by bands you've seen and stuff. You got a style.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a girl. I like talking about clothes. Yeah. that's why I asked. But okay, so once you made the decision to kind of come back to it after, like, I guess your son was born in the late 90s.
Yeah, he was born in 1997.
Okay, cool. When you made the decision to come back to music, had you been working a regular job? Like, what was life like between the end of Black Cherry versus the start of Sonic Boom?
Well, yeah, I mean, when my son was born, that was a mind-blowing thing. Because all of a sudden, it's like, I didn't know how to be a father. I mean, I knew how to go out and party. You know, I mean, I think I got sober for the last time in 1995. So when I found out that I was going to become a father, I was only 2 years sober. And it was just kind of, the fog was just lifting for me, you know, of what I'd put my life through, what I'd been through, and what I'd gone through, and what I'd done with my life, you know. And then all of a sudden, it's like this mind-blowing thing of probably the biggest and most important job in the world is to become a father. How do you become a father? You know, there's no book on it, you know. But yet, I was really close with my dad, and I think my dad was a lot like me, and I think my dad was a real troubled person when he was younger, and somehow there was a connection with my dad. And I had a lot of things that happened with me when I was younger that threw me for a loop, and my dad was trying to figure out putting pieces of a puzzle together, to try to figure out who my dad was, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to be a dad myself, a father myself, and so I think everything went into that. You know, it's like I never gave up music, but I did put a lot of focus on. You know, I had to make sure that there was food on the table and the rent was paid and there was a roof over my son's head. Mm-hmm. You know, so and that was difficult, and it was also difficult because I didn't stay together with his mom. You know, we kind of broke up as he was, you know, during the pregnancy. Okay. And so I was kind of a single father. You know, it's like my whole life for a few years, because she decided she wanted to go to school and make something of herself, so that she could support our son, mm-hmm. You know, when she's older. So she wanted to be a lawyer. Well, that's a long road, you know, to become a lawyer. So I did a little job, a little telemarketing job, you know, because it was the type of job that I could take off and play music if I needed to, but always come back to, you know, because it didn't matter how I looked, I could get on the phone, and I was good at sales. So I'd get up at 6 in the morning and I would sell, you know, go to this telemarketing place and make my sales. I'd be done by noon. I'd come home and I would take the baby, and then she'd get on the bus and go to school in Santa Monica, and I'd take care of my son while he was a baby all day long until he went to sleep at night, and then, you know, we lived in separate places. I'd put him to sleep at her place,
Mhm.
and then she'd come home maybe 11 or 12 at night, tap me on the shoulder, and I'd wake up and walk down the street to my place. And I'd go to sleep, wake up at 5 in the morning to get to work at 6 and do it all over again. And this was my cycle for a long time. So there wasn't a whole lot of time to really focus on like putting a band together or anything like that. And, you know, I had my moments and stuff, you know, where, you know, it was hard for me to like kind of go out and gig at the time too.
Yeah.
And then,
I'm not a parent yet, so I'm kind of listening to this.
Yeah. But then when he got older, it was okay for I think the schedule. That was just when he was a baby. I would have this little baby to take care of from 12 noon to like 12 at night. You know.
And what was that like for you? I mean, you said before. I mean, you talked about before how, you know, you went from living a very free and sometimes decadent lifestyle to being responsible for another human. I mean, once he was actually born, did that come to you more naturally, or was it something that you learned over time? I mean, and again, I'm kind of interested to hear it from the perspective of a man.
I loved Sasha from the get-go. And it was, I guess it was probably, you know, in a lot of ways you could say it really saved me in a way, because it gave me a real purpose that was more important than myself, you know. So it was like nothing else really mattered. You know, I was a dad, and this is my kid. It's gonna carry on after me, you know. Because once I'm gone, what is there unless I leave a record that's a hit record behind or whatever? That's kind of what I thought. It's like, well, I want to leave a mark on this world. I want to write songs that are going to touch people, that are going to last 50 years, 100 years after I'm gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, when I had Sasha, then it was like, okay, I got to raise this little human being, you know, and he's going to be the one that lives on after me, you know. You know, it's interesting watching the choices he makes in life, you know, and what you know, he didn't choose to become a musician. I introduced him to everything, but he didn't, and he's very musical, but he just didn't have the patience to sit down and do music. And I think part of it was that's what his dad did. He wants to be independent. He wants to do his own thing.
Yeah.
So he wants to be a doctor. So,
wow.
He's going to college, trying to get through school, and I'm proud of him. You know, he wants to be independent too. He moved out at 20, like you know, like I did, or he moved out, whatever. You know, it's like when I hit like, you know, 19, 20, I left the nest. You know,
yeah.
Struck out on my own. I'm just trying to find myself. You know.
And you said he's going to go to medical school.
He wants to go. No, he's up in Seattle now.
Right.
He's going to school up in Seattle and doing his establishing residency by going to community college, so that he can go to UW, and it won't cost as much because he'll be a resident up there by the time he's eligible to go in there.
Okay.
And he wants to. So I guess he'll probably get his bachelor's at UW and then apply for medical school. He's very determined on his goal, so I think he'll do it.
Awesome.
But yeah, becoming a father was mind blowing. It's like it was pretty cool.
So looking forward, we've already talked about the record that you want to release. What other ambitions do you have? Musically, personally, anything?
You know, I mean, I'm pretty happy with my life, the way I'm plugging along here, and it's like, and you know, taking on new things. You know, I guess probably the next stage, what's kind of been my focus on my life is I just turned 60, so I'm thinking, how am I going to retire? You know, it's like I'm playing music for a living. You know.
Yeah.
And I'm doing pretty good, but then I'm finding other ways to make money too, and income, and I'm investing in stocks and started an IRA and stuff, and then, you know, and at the same time I'm supporting my son, so it's like I'm just trying to find, okay, now I feel like I'm kind of really late in life, but I'm starting to be more responsible with money and investing, and trying to think of, like, because I guess it's starting to occur to me that I'm 60 years old, and I want to be in a position that I'm I don't see myself ever retiring. I see myself playing into my 90. If I'm 90 years old, I'm still going to be playing. If I'm able, I'm going to be playing.
Yeah.
So I don't really see myself being able to ever retire because I didn't go like get a job when I was 25 that had an IRA and a retirement fund and a pension and all that kind of stuff and stick with it for 30 years to where I could retire. I didn't do any of that. You know, I led this kind of gypsy type lifestyle where I just floated around the world playing music and it was fun and I don't regret it. But now all of a sudden I'm thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to retire? You know, it's like I got to start thinking about that and planning. So my goal is you know, planning on, you know, on how to do that. You know, and I put in a bid on a house a few weeks ago. I didn't get it, but now I got 2 others that I'm looking at and I'm thinking about, you know, putting a bid, you know, because that's like still paying rent. I just think it's time to like own something. You know. So.
Yeah.
That's the first for me. I mean, I did when I was married. I bought a house, you know. But then I got divorced and we sold the house, you know. So it's like it all fell apart, you know. But it's life, you know. And I've had a lot of ups and downs. You know, my life has just been this one big roller coaster and stuff right now, you know. And I'm sure there'll be more downs and stuff. Right now I'm on and up, and I'm really excited about this new record that's coming out. And I think it'll open doors for me. I really do. I really believe in it, and even if it doesn't, I'm really proud of it. And it's like I'm really passionate about what I do. I don't just get up and think that, you know, hey, everybody should love me because I'm a musician. You know, I really am passionate about what I do. Everything I do means something to me. You know, there's a lot of heart in my lyrics and what I say. I don't just put out, you know, working lyrics, you know, make something up. You know, every little thing I do means something to me. And the last record I did with Joe, Joe's somebody by the way, I've connected with musically on every level. He's got everything that I need to make one complete thing. You know, like everything he has is stuff that I don't have, and everything I have is stuff that he doesn't have. So the 2 of us together just make this complete, great partnership, right? And so it's come off really good. So, but the first record we did, we never really got anybody behind us to really do it right. You know, we did a bunch of demos and stuff in our own studio, stuff recordings that we did ourselves, and we just thought, when we got busy and caught up with life, we thought, well, you know, might as well put this stuff out. So we just threw it all together and put it out. And some of the stuff we shouldn't probably even release, but there's a lot of good stuff on that record, though.
There is. I really liked it.
And it made a mark. It got some great reviews. I read some reviews on that record that just made me cry. Yeah. But nobody knows about it because we only printed up a couple 1,000 copies. It just came and went, you know. And there was nobody to market it and kind of like give it, you know, make everybody, you know, if people that discover that record think it's just an amazing record. And it was just a bunch of demos that me and Joe did. It threw together. But I wish
they feel authentic.
Yeah, I mean, if we ever have the means to, I'd like to re-release that or repackage it maybe, and give it another chance, you know, or re-record the music or something, give it another life. But this one, the record we just did, I'm going to put everything into making sure people know about this record. I want everybody to know about this record. I'm not even sure. I think we're going to call it "Everybody Rains on My Parade."
Okay.
But
which is the name of the song that you already have.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the big hit number too.
Good.
There's a lot of good stuff on this record, but yeah, I'm very passionate about what we did. I'm very proud. It's the best thing I've ever done. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to say I think, you know, I'm not the type of person to like toot my own horn a lot, you know, brag about myself a lot. But I really think that this record is probably the best rock and roll record that's come out in this millennium. I don't know of anything else that's this good. I mean, you know, I don't think I'm the greatest singer. I don't think I'm the greatest musician. Maybe not the greatest songwriter. But for rock and roll, I haven't heard anything I really like in a long time. And this is the best thing I think that has come out in the 2000s. In this millennium. That's what I truly believe in it. And I hope I can get everybody else to believe it as well. But even if they don't, I'm still proud of this record.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so beginning to wrap up a bit. Like,
This is a long interview, huh?
It is, but hey,
it's a book. You should write a book.
Or you should. Yeah. Which you told me you actually tried one time.
Oh, it's too overwhelming. There's too much going on. This one of these days, I'm going to sit down and try to sort it all out.
Again, and again, like, if you're able to take the time to write it yourself and not get a second writer kind of tinkering in it with, I think your words would be better. I love memoirs, and I love it when people actually write them themselves without any outside help. To me, that feels authentic. It's your voice, even if it's not technically the most perfect writing. It's still much more valuable, in my opinion. So.
Cool. I'll give it a shot someday.
So, a couple of fun questions for the end.
Okay.
Do you have any favorite rock and roll records of all time, or just records in general?
I've always thought of Aftermath by the Rolling Stones as being one of my all-time favorite records.
Okay.
I also like I said, Tattoo took on a whole new meaning for me later on. Other than that, there's a lot of good records. If I had to name one, I would say Aftermath. I'd say. Yeah, it's really one that kind of got me really going. Okay. I think you were asking me earlier about Altamont.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of lived through all these events in rock and roll, which I missed because I was born in 1989, and kind of the last surge of rock and roll in the mainstream was grunge, and that was over when I was 4. So.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, I remember, when Woodstock came out, that album, that Woodstock, everybody's like fascinated with that album and stuff. And there were some songs on that record that really stood out to me, that Woodstock record. But Altamont, I was too young when it came out. I mean, Altamont, I was like 9 or something when it happened. But just a couple years later, they made a movie out of it, Give Me Shelter.
Yeah.
I went and saw the movie in the theaters, and I was like, okay. I tell you what, right about to that point, I was always a Beatles fan. Mm-hmm. Like when I was a kid, it was all about the Beatles. You know, Rolling Stones, okay, and they're pretty good, but Beatles, it was Beatles, right? Uh-huh. And when I saw Give Me Shelter, that changed because I saw Mick Jagger doing Under My Thumb live, and I go, that's amazing. That's a great song. You know. So I started listening to Aftermath. Had Under My Thumb on it. I believe it was it Aftermath? Yeah, it was Aftermath, I think.
I'm trying to think of what the dates are for their albums now. But
yeah, Aftermath had Under My Thumb, I'm pretty sure. Okay. I always loved that marimba part.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Brian Jones did that, right?
Yeah. I had a marimba I still have a marimba, but I had 2 4.5 octave marimbas, one taking up half of my dining room, and then one at my mom's. And I just sold them recently, just because they were taking up space. But when I have more space, I'm going to get another one. But see, I go off on tangents and stuff. But
no, I love your tangents. Keep going.
But after when I heard him do Under My Thumb, Altamont, Under My Thumb became my favorite song by the Rolling Stones, and still to this day, I would say it's probably one of my favorite songs.
I love that song too. I'm a feminist, but it's so good musically that
and that whole album was just I listened to it. It really kind of woke me up to rock and roll. And so, but I'm still a Beatles fan. I'm still a Rolling Stones fan. I like them both. It's not like either or.
Yeah.
You know, it's like for me, it's like you have to know both. And it's just so important to understand and love both. And then later on, it became like the days of Led Zeppelin and stuff. But and they were a big influence. But for me, it was the Beatles and the Rolling Stones.
And they'd probably say that about each other too. I mean, I feel like now it's to a point where they both realize their importance, and the ones that are still alive. I mean.
Another one of my all-time favorite songs, just because of what it says, is a song called by T-Rex, "Life's a Gas." I used to always play that song. Do you know that song?
I do.
Okay, it's really good. It's like
I might play it again.
I like it because especially with everything I've been through in life, it's just like it's like for me what it says is I don't know, I have a pick. My fingers. Oh, maybe I do have a pick. So what I like about the song is it's just kind of saying, it doesn't matter what you go through, whether it's good or bad. You know, the horrible times or the bad or the good times, the great times. And if you didn't have all of it, you wouldn't know when you're happy, because if you're always happy all the time, you wouldn't have anything to relate it to. So you have to have those bad times. And it's saying that it doesn't matter what you do or what you experience, at least you're here. Because if you weren't here, you wouldn't know it. You know, there's nothing to know. You know, because you're not here. You know? So it's just saying life's an experience. No matter what kind of experience you're having, you're experiencing it. So you got to enjoy the bad and the good, because it's just what it's. It's just saying life's a gas, just an experience. What were you gonna say?
Well, one thing that put that into perspective with me, because I was thinking about doing this interview and the other interviews I'm going to do, is the anniversary of Kurt Cobain's death. And,
Yeah.
You know, when I was young, I adored Kurt Cobain. Nirvana was like, that was my band. I mean, after the Beatles, like, Nirvana was my band. And
I think the Beatles were very influenced by it. I mean, I think Nirvana was very influenced by the Beatles.
They were, yeah. Kurt
very
said that
melodic.
a lot. But you know, as I got older, I realized the tragedy of what a true tragedy his life, his decision to kill himself was. And I, you know, as much as I still love the music, I don't really hold that part of his story in any esteem anymore. And you know, I don't feel anger at him for it or whatever, but you know, I just came to the point where I feel more admiration for people who stick it out, people who see the beauty in life. I mean, in a lot of ways, dying is easy, living is harder. I have to admire people who actually lived through it. You know?
But I do understand where he's coming from, because that's how when I wrote. That's why music is such a powerful outlet and a necessary outlet for me to express myself. Because when I wrote One More Reason to Die, that's exactly how I was feeling. I was feeling, well, what's the point? You know, like, you know, why don't I just end it? I mean, so I don't feel this. But then there's songs like Life's a Gas that says, you know, you have to feel it, because if you don't stick it out through that, then you won't know the good times, you know. Like if Kurt Cobain had stuck it out, he'd seen his kid grow up, and realized all the beautiful things that his daughter got to experience, you know.
Yeah, and that's my sadness in knowing his story, is that he didn't reach that realization and kind of gave up before he grew up in a way. So I admire people who, you know, even if you have those moments, it's still great that you grow past it.
Yeah. Should we end with Life's a Gas?
Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you for having us, everybody.
Yes. Thank you. Life's a Gas. Paul Mars Black.
You're going to edit this down, right? Or are you going to make them listen to the whole thing?
Who knows? Let's see.
All right. Life's a Gas by T-Rex.
Yes.
I could have loved you, girl, like a planet. I could have changed your heart to a star. But it really doesn't matter at all. No, it really doesn't matter at all. Life's a gas. Your love in the sky, but it really doesn't matter at all. No, it really doesn't matter at all. Life's a gas. Hope it's gonna last. wasted. I could have burned our fate in the sand, but it really doesn't matter at all. No, it really doesn't matter at all. Life's a gas, really doesn't matter at all. No, it really doesn't matter at all. Life's a gas, and I hope it's gonna last. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Mars Black.